Tonight on Capitol Hill, what began as a routine oversight hearing turned into a searing indictment of how power is being used inside the Department of Homeland Security and why that matters for every American watching at home. Before we go any further, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss our continuing coverage of these hearings and what they mean for your rights and your safety.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you for holding today's hearing on oversight of the Department of Homeland Security. Congressional Republicans' oversight of the Trump administration has been dismal this Congress. Republicans have had administration witnesses before this committee the fewest times in any recent administration's first year. Most of that was on the watch of the prior chairman, who was, to my favorite phase of his, derelict in his duty to bring Trump administration officials before the committee. This hearing is a step in the right direction. The Trump administration has created serious issues at TSA, CISA, and DHS, S&T that need to be addressed. Committee Democrats are committed to taking a hard look at those issues, from President Trump's slashing the CISA workforce to Secretary Kristi Noem's unlawful rescinding union rights for frontline transportation security officers, to the administration cutting programs that leverage university-based research to address critical Homeland Security challenges. But none of those things can be the sole focus of our oversight right now, because President Trump and Secretary Noem have weaponized DHS against the American people and are wreaking havoc in Minneapolis and other communities across this country. It's an absolute disgrace that ICE isn't here today in wake of the shooting death of Renee Good at the hands of an ICE agent. Mr. Chairman, as you know, I've asked for ICE Acting Director Lyons to appear at today's hearing. I ask unanimous consent to insert in the record my letter to you dated January 14th, 2026, requesting Acting Directors Lyons appear before the committee without delay. I want to thank you for issuing that invitation, but committee Democrats and I are outraged that ICE refused to appear today. Ms. Good was a wife, mother of 3 young children, a devout Christian, and a U.S. citizen. We all seen the shooting video with our own eyes. Ms. Good certainly did not deserve to be killed by her own government. She should be alive today. Mr. Chairman, at this time, I ask for a moment of silence in memory of Renee Good. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, in the wake of Ms. Good's killing, ICE has an obligation to appear and answer members' questions. Her tragic killing needs to be thoroughly investigated, and everyone involved, from the ICE officer who pulled the trigger to the president and secretary who sent them to Minneapolis, must be held accountable. DHS also needs to be held accountable for its out-of-control immigration operation, creating chaos in communities like Los Angeles, Chicago, New Orleans, and Minneapolis, terrorizing people from all walks of life and hurting U.S. citizens and immigrants alike. Mr. Chairman, in order to ensure that ICE appears before the committee, pursuant to Clause 2J1 of House Rule 11, I'm providing you with a letter signed by every Democratic member of the committee requesting testimony from Acting Director Lyons. I ask unanimous consent that this Minority Day letter be submitted for the record. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I understand that you intend to hold a series of oversight hearings with DHS officials. I look forward to ICE being before the committee at our next hearings. Democrats insist on that. Never has oversight and accountability been more necessary than it is now. President Trump and Secretary Noem are doing real damage to this country and to the department that was stood up in the wake of 9/11 to protect Americans from future attacks. Unfortunately, President Trump and Secretary Noem have established a corrupt, above-the-law culture at DHS, and Noem has enriched herself and her allies at taxpayers' expense. She has awarded multiple no-bid contracts to close associates and siphoned $240 million of taxpayers' money to companies connected to her top advisor and close confidant, Corey Lewandowski, as well as to her spokesperson husband. She fast-tracked a contract worth almost $1 billion to a company led by a Trump donor, and she's living rent-free in the U.S. Coast Guard housing designated for military members. She has also abused her power as secretary. She's acknowledged cherry-picking which court orders departments will comply with, contrary to the rule of law. She's used access to disaster funds to punish political foes, illegally withholding congressionally authorized disaster funds. She has obstructed congressional oversight, barring members from visiting ICE detention facilities and refusing to respond to oversight letters and requests. In short, she has enriched herself, abused the power of her office, obstructed congressional oversight, and violated her oath of office to the Constitution. Never has oversight of the Department of Homeland Security been more important, and never has holding an administration accountable been more necessary. Be assured that accountability is coming. Accountability is coming, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
In a tense exchange during the Kristi Noem hearing, Democratic lawmakers accused congressional Republicans of failing their most basic constitutional responsibility, oversight of the executive branch. The charge was blunt, that during the first year of the Trump administration, this committee has brought administration officials before Congress fewer times than in any recent presidency. In plain terms, lawmakers argued that the people running agencies with enormous power over travel, borders, and surveillance have largely avoided public questioning. This hearing, they said, was overdue and only a partial step in the right direction. Why does that matter? Because DHS is not one agency. It is a massive security apparatus that includes TSA, which screens millions of travelers, CISA, which protects critical infrastructure and election security, and DHS Science and Technology, which funds research meant to anticipate future threats. Decisions made inside these offices ripple into everyday life, from airport lines to cybersecurity defenses. If you want clearer explanations like this, make sure you subscribe now and stay with us. Lawmakers highlighted specific policy changes they say are weakening Homeland Security rather than strengthening it. Among them, cuts to the CISA workforce, the rollback of union rights for frontline TSA officers, and the elimination of university-based research programs designed to address emerging security challenges. The argument here goes beyond budgets and bureaucracy. Critics say these moves reduce institutional expertise and morale at a time when cyber threats, infrastructure attacks, and domestic instability are all increasing. But the hearing took a far more serious turn when the focus shifted from policy disagreements to human consequences. Democrats argued that none of these internal disputes can be separated from what they describe as the weaponization of DHS against the American people. They pointed specifically to events in Minneapolis and other cities, where immigration enforcement actions have sparked outrage and fear. This is where the oversight conversation became about life and death, not paperwork. If you want deeper reporting that connects policy to real people, subscribe to the channel and help us keep doing this work. At the center of that moment was the killing of Renee Good, a wife, a mother of 3, a devout Christian, and a United States citizen, shot and killed by an ICE agent. Lawmakers emphasize that many Americans have seen the video themselves, and that no matter where one stands politically, the facts demand scrutiny. The question raised was not only about a single incident, but about accountability in agencies that are empowered to use deadly force. What intensified the controversy was who was not in the room. Democrats had formally requested that the acting ICE director appear at the hearing to answer questions directly. Although an invitation was issued, ICE refused to show up. For critics, that absence symbolized a broader problem: agencies exercising extraordinary authority while avoiding public accountability. In a democracy, oversight is supposed to be the mechanism that prevents that imbalance. If you believe transparency matters, subscribe now so these stories do not get buried. The moment concluded with a request for silence, a pause in a room usually filled with procedural noise and partisan sparring. It was meant to honor Renee Good, but also to remind viewers that behind every acronym and agency name are real lives affected by government action. That is the deeper lesson of this hearing. Oversight is not just about politics. It is about ensuring that power is restrained, justified, and answerable to the people. We will continue to follow this story, including whether ICE leadership will eventually testify and what changes, if any, come from this growing pressure. Subscribe to the channel for ongoing updates, clear explanations, and reporting that puts context and humanity back into the news.